Hey, it's Nay, and welcome to Hey Nay. So, the topic for this episode is languages and dating. And this episode is a little bit different than the usual episodes because I'm pretty much doing a review, sort of, on a book that I highly, highly recommend that everyone to read. The Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman. I hope you can see it. Great. So this book right here is just amazing. It really is. Um, it really does help you with your communication skills in relationships or even when you're trying to start up relationships. Um, I find the book very, very informative. I've recommended it to people even before I was done reading it. And I think it's something that everyone should really look into. Um, Dr. Chapman goes into great detail about these things. He uses examples that are very understandable and relatable to everyone. Um, Dr. Chapman has a spiritual background, so he uses a few examples that are religion based, but he also um, expresses that this book is open to everyone, everyone of all beliefs, and I do believe that everyone can benefit from it. I truly do. Um, so I wanted to talk about it. But I wanted to sort of break down what the five love languages are. And so I wanted to make sure I was explaining it all well. So I actually went online, and Sarah Long from SheKnows.com, she broke them down pretty well. And I'm going to share that with you. So Sarah says, all right, so the first one is words of affirmation. This language uses words to affirm other people. For those who prefer the words of affirmation language, hearing I love you and other compliments are what they value the most. Words hold real value within this language. Furthermore, negative or insulting comments cut deep and won't be easily forgiven. So, essentially, what these languages mean is that each person has a primary love language. Everyone has a language that they hold dear, that they are best, they communicate best with. Um, so words of affirmation, words matter so much. So if you're a person whose primary love language is words of affirmation, words matter to you. What people say is important. You know, the meaning behind wanting them to say these things is important. If you have a partner or you have a friend or even a family member that's also whose primary language is words of affirmation, you may know that they pay attention to what you say. They really pick up on the things that you say and they remember it and they bring it back and things like that. Um, and when you say something that is hurtful, it really hurts them. It's as if they physically hurt. So it's good to recognize those individuals because you have to be careful and mindful of what you say. And I believe we should try to be that anyway, but you should know that these people need affirming positive words as well. They need to hear that. And that's the best way you communicate with them. The second is quality time. This this language is all about giving the other person your undivided attention. Unlike the words of affirmation language, talk is cheap and being a loved one's main focus leaves quality timers feeling satisfied and comforted. Distractions, postponed dates, or the failure to listen can be especially hurtful to these individuals. Being for them is crucial. I love this. So, quality time individual wants to spend time with you. These are people who are always saying, let's do this together, let's do that together, let's go out and do this, or let's do a date night, or they want to do something with just you, or they do want to do something with the group or whatever. That is what sort of that means. You really wanting to be around other people or spend time with the person that you're interested in. So if that's your primary love language, that is what you want. You want to have someone who's always around, and you want them to communicate with that with you. You want them to say, hey, you want to hang out, or you want to go to dinner, you want to go for a walk together, something that shows that you go, and it has to be routine. It has to be continuous. Just like Sarah said, the words don't matter really for a quality of time person. The words, they need the actions. They need the actions behind it. So that's kind of where that is. And the third one is receiving gifts. So for some people, what makes them feel most loved is to receive a tangible gift. This doesn't necessarily mean the person is materialistic, but a meaningful or thoughtful present is what makes them feel appreciated. Yes. Actually, I remember this from the book, actually. There was so Dr. Chapman, in the book, he sort of recites anecdotal stories of some of the clients he's met with. And one guy came to him and was saying, like, he doesn't understand why this his girlfriend, I believe at the time, his girlfriend has so many teddy bears. She has so many stuffed animals and teddy bears all over the place. And she even has one from her ex in her room, just a whole bunch. And for him, that was just so bizarre and scary. He was kind of put off a little bit. He couldn't believe she was holding on to all these things, and he didn't understand it. He was like trying to tell her to let go of them and get rid of them, and she refused. She didn't want to. And it turns out that her primary love language was receiving gifts. She could tell you who gave her each teddy bear. She can tell you who gave her and what it meant to her. Each of those gifts represents someone helping her through a certain time, or someone doing something that meant so much to her. Each of those teddy bears mean a lot to her. And when the boyfriend realized that, he was like, wow, I didn't even think of it that way, And I think a lot of us do that. On the surface, we may think that it doesn't mean anything, or it's just like a weird thing. But no, there may be meaning behind that. And it's, especially if we're interested in someone, we have to unpack that. We have to try to understand where this person is coming from. And yes, they had an open dialogue and an open communication about it. And, he was able to know that that's what she wants. So what he began to do was actually give her gifts. He gave her teddy bears that would, remind her of their relationship. And, they compromised with her letting go of teddy bears that were from past relationship, but she did keep some teddy bears that meant a lot to her, like from her family or her close friends. So he understood that, and he allowed that to be in their atmosphere, in their environment. So things like that. The fourth love language is acts of service. So people who speak the language of service wants their partner to recognize that their life is rough and help them out in any way possible. Lending a helping hand shows you really care. People who thrive in this language do not deal with broken promises or perceived laziness, and have very little tolerance for people who make more work for them. Basically, if you're not willing to show your appreciation by doing them a favor, you're saying you don't value them. So people like for other people to be helpful. They want you to that means a lot. If you are helpful to me, if you're always trying to help me, that means a lot to me. That means that you care. That means that I appreciate that you're doing that, and it just makes me feel good when you do that. So if your partner or someone you're interested in is their primary love language is acts of service, do things for them, offer. Oh, can I do this? Can I give you a ride? Or, are you okay? Call them up, see how they're doing. Is everything okay? Oh, and the best is when you do things without them even knowing, or even having to say anything, or even having to ask. You're just doing it, you're taking the initiative to do it. You're doing it free willingly. Things like that. The last one is physical touch. Nothing speaks more deeply than appropriate touch. This doesn't mean only in the bedroom. Everyday physical connections like hand-holding, kissing, or any type of reaffirming physical contact is greatly appreciated. A person who speaks the language of physical touch isn't necessarily an over-the-top PDA, but getting a little touchy feel does make them feel safe and loved. Any instance of physical abuse is a total deal breaker. There you go again. So people like to be close, touch, I know some people like to cuddle up. They like to always be rubbing on someone. I know some people have a hard time sleeping if they're not touching someone else, or they're not holding on to someone else. Your primary love language is probably physical touch, you know? And even if you're just a very, very physical person, that might be because your language is physical touch. You need to have that person to make you feel good. Like, you need to have that skin to skin contact. And technically, research shows that we all desire that physical contact to some extent, and that we need it to feel great when we're touching for a long period of time. Like, I think I mentioned this in the attachment and dating. When we're hugging for a long period of time, oxytocin is released, and it makes you feel good. It's the love hormone. You feel great. You feel a little bit better. You feel a little more comforted. So people whose primary love language is physical touch, they feel that more. They embrace that more. Um, and that's pretty much all the 5 love languages. And Dr. Chapman goes on to say that some of us may even have a secondary language. We may have one that is completely necessary, and a second one that we also sort of communicate with, or we also sort of follow. And it's our responsibility to speak our partner's love language. It's our responsibility to try to speak other people's languages who especially we're having conflict with. So I know some people may be having issues with family members. Try to understand their love language. Try to figure out what that is and speak to them that way. Communicate them through that love language. And Dr. Chapman talks about that. And I would even say, figuring out that love language is not a task. It's not. Actually, Dr. Chapman has a quiz in which you can take. I'll probably try to post it in the comments if I can get it. For you to do. He has it at the back of all of his books, but he also has it online, I believe. And I think it's free for you to take and see what your primary love language is. And I really think it's beneficial to know that, because then you can communicate that better with anyone who you're involved with. People need to know this, I believe, And this book right here is the singles version that I read and I enjoyed. I also have another version, the Secret to Love version. And Dr. Chapman has created several different versions. He's created versions that are for parents to children, those who have spouses in the military, those who are a little bit more older, those who are married. It's those for teenagers. It's a whole bunch. So please look into it, because he is truly, truly, truly great, and he really gets it. It's all very intuitive. And it does feel natural when you do it. So I highly, highly recommend getting the 5 love languages. All relationship podcasts I've listened to have recommended it. And it is the #1 best-selling relationship book out there. And it's been that way for quite some time. So I really, really think that you guys should read it. I also want to note that Dr. Chapman also does have a podcast himself. It's called Building Relationships. So feel free to check that out if you're interested into it. And he has more books coming out. He has countless books, and he does different conferences. I would recommend going to the 5lovelanguages.com, I believe, and seeing what he's doing next, and try to follow him and see if you can catch one of his talks. And I'm hoping one day I get to catch one of his talks too, because he gets it. He gets it, and I think he's hit the hammer on the nail. Like he's got it. He's used it. What is it? He's hit the hammer on the nail, right? He's hit the nail with the hammer. Oh my gosh. But yeah, he gets it. And I really think it's very, very great for anyone to read. So if you haven't read it, read it. Please, please, please. And if you've read it, recommend other people to do so as well. That is it. Thank you all for watching. Subscribe, like, share, love, and remember to always start your day off with a hey. Goodbye.